Greetings all, and I'd like to welcome you to today's IoT WebTalk on the topic of 5G IoT for manufacturing, transforming industry with mobile. We have an exciting agenda ahead of us today. Firstly, Neil Young from the GSMA will give a brief introduction to 5G IoT for manufacturing. Then we will have two keynote presentations. Firstly, Hakim Aturi from Airbus will present on Airbus's 5G IoT strategy and focus areas. Following this, Jakob Groot from KPN will present on their 5G IoT initiative with Shell Pernis. After the keynotes, we'll have a panel session with Shamik Azou from Verizon, Andreas Escribano from Telefónica, and Juha Mirsh from ABB. The panel will be hosted by Neil Young from GSMA. Finally, we will be publishing a couple of live polls during the session. You'll receive an alert when they're published, and I encourage you to participate so we can obtain your input into some of the key topics of today. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Neil to introduce 5G IoT for manufacturing.
Hi, thanks, Arina. So, Joe, if we could go to the first slide, please. So what I wanted to do is introduce 5G for manufacturing and Industry 4.0 transformation to you. So 5G obviously has numerous benefits for industrial use cases over other technologies and previous generations of mobile networks. And as manufacturers and industries move away from proprietary and legacy systems into new digital manufacturing systems, then 5G offers them numerous benefits for taking advantage of these new technologies. 5G includes new features such as ultra-low latency, improved reliability over previous generations, support for massive IoT networks, so where you need to asset track every single item within a warehouse or a factory, 5G can support that. The introduction of advanced network slicing, as well as the enhanced bandwidth that we all know about. And together, these benefits of 5G really provide some compelling use cases for digital transformation within manufacturing and the wider industrial sector. So it can increase the flexibility on the factory floor. So that means faster introduction of new products, can improve the efficiency of the supply chains in the manufacturing sector. So manufacturers can minimize the inventory that they hold, they can save costs, and they can give much better demand indicators to their suppliers in that supply chain. It can improve productivity. Having less downtime due to improved reliability means that a higher yield can be achieved from the production line. And improving quality means that customer satisfaction is improved, so returns are reduced, and again, costs are reduced further. And of course, it enables improved sustainability. So, it's able to reduce waste from the production line, which in turn reduces the environmental impact of CO2 emissions from the factory. And actually, all of these together, plus a number of other technologies such as cloud and blockchain and big data and AI and so on, really come together to create Industry 4.0 and enable manufacturers to really transform their operations into much more efficient systems. McKinsey recently published some report where we take all of these technologies together, and they found some significant benefits of this digital transformation. They found that companies that are able to adopt all of these technologies are able to reduce the downtime of their machines between 30 and 50%. They're able to gain 15 to 30% improvements in productivity and up to 30% increase in throughput. All of this obviously has the advantage of of decreasing costs of the production environment. Significant benefits of Industry 4.0 transformation, which is going to be driven by 5G. So if we move to the next slide, please, Joe. The world that we're living in today is obviously changing quite significantly. We're all affected by this. And in the manufacturing and industrial sectors, the industry drivers are changing as well due to the impact of coronavirus. Like with everything, there's going to be some winners and there'll be some losers as well. And we see in the manufacturing sector, different vertical sectors are being affected by the coronavirus in different ways. Some are having their business completely disrupted. Some are having to shut down. Some are having to accelerate their operations. But the drivers for Industry 4.0, even through this time, remain the same: the digitization and the automation to bring flexibility. But new drivers will emerge coming off the back of the coronavirus, which Industry 4.0 can address. Right now, manufacturers are having to manage very flexible demands in their supply chain, and they've got very disrupted supply chains, having to find new suppliers, having to promote flexibility on their factory floor. Some manufacturers having to move from manufacturing one thing to something completely different overnight. Also, social distancing and so on is having to change some of the processes which our manufacturers have become used to. Manual processes are having to give way to automated processes to enable social distancing on the factory floor. And in the future, as we move away from the coronavirus and hopefully we return back to normal, these manufacturing companies are going to want to get back to business quickly. They're going to want to start to increase their yields, increase their revenue from their factories. And that means that actually the adoption of these technologies could increase even faster. Things like supply chain disruption are probably here to stay for quite a while, and we need to think about how the manufacturing industry can adapt and really work in the new normal world. And if you look on the interface at the moment, we have a poll up around the impact of COVID-19 on digital manufacturing. So please provide your view as to how you think this will affect the manufacturing industry. To respond to all of this, GSMA has launched a new forum, 5G IoT for Manufacturing Forum. And this looks at different needs from the manufacturing and is aimed at encouraging 5G adoption and understanding what the requirements are from manufacturing companies, from mobile operators, and from the broader 5G ecosystem. The Manufacturing Forum is looking to undertake work around defining private networks, around defining 5G benefits and 5G use cases in manufacturing, looking at how we can integrate data and applications and edge computing into the factory on 5G networks, and what steps we need to take around spectrum availability and security of networks in manufacturing, and what sorts of resources and skills manufacturers and other people within the ecosystem need to adopt to make 5G adoption a success. So we're working with these three different groups of areas, so manufacturing industry, mobile operators, and the 5G ecosystem. Working with manufacturing, we want to be able to make sure that the manufacturing industry are able to target their 5G investments correctly. They're putting their money in the right place and they're able to gain a return on that investment by investing in the right use cases. So they're able to build an appropriately skilled workforce, and they're able to have better knowledge about 5G and have the right contacts within the industry to make their ambitions reality. We're helping mobile operators drive the adoption of 5G in manufacturing and also build some trust with 5G in the manufacturing sector, so addressing any concerns that the sector may have. We're also working to communicate some of the very clear benefits of 5G for some of the specific use cases and requirements within the manufacturing industry. And with the broader ecosystem, we're working to define and drive the creation of some new ecosystems around manufacturing. And defining the different roles and the different resources that are needed to support the growth of 5G in this sector. So we want to build support for these manufacturing use cases right throughout the ecosystem and really help us scale this market and help these manufacturing companies really succeed with the adoption of Industry 4.0. And if this is something you would be interested in talking some more about, then please contact us after the webinar. I'd like to hand over and introduce you to Hakim Aturi, who's the 5G Solutions Architect from Airbus. And I'd like to just remind you as well of the polls that are happening in the corner of your screen if you'd like to participate with those as well. But I will hand over to Hakim. Hi, Hakim.
Hi, thanks, Neil. And thank you all for the invitation today. I'll go quickly through the use cases that we have listed for the IoT and manufacturing at Airbus today. Next slide, please. So around this global 5G picture, we've identified 4 key domains in where 5G can bring significant business value for Airbus. So the first one is satellite and aircraft communication. So this is all about in-flight entertainment, but also about in-cabin IoT. The other domain is airports. Today we have aircraft landing that need to offload significant amount of data for predictive maintenance and analysis. So the faster the network, the better is the predictive maintenance solution. Mission critical communication is also one of the solutions provided today by Airbus for airports. Tetrapol is one of them, and we're looking at 3GPP like mission critical solutions for the future. UAM and UTM probably more an R&D topic today, but becoming more and more important. How can 5G help in connecting and improving the safety of flying taxis and drones? That's the other domain that Airbus is looking at these days. I'd like today to speak about what we call MRO and factories, so maintenance, repair, operations, and our factories, and all the listed IoT use cases. But before this, I'd like you to watch a short video from our facilities in Hamburg, Germany. Thank you. So first use case, supply chain, that was mentioned by Neil in his introduction. We think that this is probably one of the most important for Airbus. It's about tracking the parts from A to B, from plant to country, and also to provide different levels of tracking accuracy, I would say. So down to 1 meter indoors, for example. Can we use 5G for this? It's also about the use of autonomous guided vehicles and autonomous mobile robots in the factories to bring the parts at the right time. So how can 5G bring improvement to the current manufacturing? Probably by securing service continuity between indoors and outdoors when the part is traveling from country to country, by providing roaming between countries, also roaming between private LTE or private 5G networks and public 5G networks with different levels of security, of course, and probably slicing. And another application that we also have identified in the use cases is something we call Mira at Airbus. So this is augmented reality. We use a digital mock-up, and the idea here is to move to paperless production, and by using a digital mock-up with smart glasses, you will provide AR guidance to the worker, and therefore reduce the workload on the worker and allow him to focus on the right elements and the essential elements of his work. So again, 5G, what can it bring here? We think load time and lower latency for such applications is very important. Another use case, AI and collaborative robotics. And I think in this case it's very similar to the previous one. I wanted to bring the discussion about the data sources, in this case, that we also classified. All these machines and people and workers will generate a lot of data that needs to be used in decision making by AI, so that how can we connect all this together? How can we synchronize things together and bring that that added value? We have talked about this the previous time we have met. Smart tools are an essential thing in building aircraft. Today, there is a lack of flexibility in using a smart tool. It has to be connected and synchronized with a lot of other systems, as well as the worker that is using the smart tool. Is this feasible with 5G? Can we bring an ecosystem of devices all connected and synchronized around the worker? It's all about this. So we think that the network has to adapt and to the demand and not the opposite. So in this case, a reduced loading time of 3D models, an accurate connectivity to the SAP subsystems, that is the important factors in this. So for the remote assistance, again, the idea, as you can see here, is more effective, I think, less in factories, but in smaller remote sites where MRO and maintenance and repair operations are important. You cannot really bring an expert. It costs time and money. If somebody has to fly from Spain to France to fix something in a plant, so how can you reduce that travel time, reduce the paperwork, and so on? I think this is really basic, but quite important. So you see what I see is the actual use case. And also to finish on my side, this is a project that we have already put in service in Airbus last year. It's a logistic mobile terminal that is used by logistics people to bring parcel from A to B. And this is improved by scanning RFID and going to the SAP systems. This will also evolve by bringing new capabilities such as smart glasses and so on that will require high bandwidth. I think I went quite quickly around the use cases. Some of them are missing here, especially around time-sensitive network and industrial protocols such as Profinet. But I hope I gave you a short introduction of what we think is important for Airbus. Thank you.
The results here that over half of the people on this webinar think that COVID-19 is actually going to accelerate the adoption of digital manufacturing, which is very interesting, and obviously means that we have a great deal of work to do. But obviously, COVID-19 is going to have a major impact on the manufacturing industry, and hopefully it will be a positive one. I'd like to hand over to our next speaker, Jakob Groeps, EVP from KPN, who is going to present about their installation with the Shell Pernis refinery. Over to you, Jakob.
Thank you very much, Neil, and thank you very much, Hakim. I hope everybody can hear me well. I'd like to give you a presentation on what we've done the last couple of years on the biggest oil refinery in Europe, together with Shell. And I think there are a couple of comparisons to be made to the introduction presentation of Neil with respect to public and private networking, but also the connected worker that Hakim addressed as well. But before I do that, and I hope you get all the inspiration from it to develop your own strategies around 5G, IoT, and manufacturing in it as well. When did it all start? And you see the timeline going through this screen. We already started in 2016 with the first 5G exercises in a EU summit in Amsterdam with a couple of webcams operating on 3.5 gigahertz. But we also hired a couple of PhDs together with Delft University to work on AI and 5G and machine learning. we signed a contract with Shell in 2019 using our 5G services in their environment. But what we also did was signed a contract with Tampnet, which is an operator on the North Sea, where we cover the Dutch shelf of the Dutch part of the continental shelf to really help all of our customers forward. And that's why I also want to start in a moment a video where we can listen and hopefully read what a couple of our customers are really telling us about their expectations of 5G and wireless connectivity. And I have to apologize for the second video because I saw that even the subtitles are in Dutch, but hopefully you'll understand it. I'll come back to that later. Please start the video.
5G biedt de mogelijkheid om even helemaal opnieuw na te denken over hoe organiseer je nou je connectiviteit. Als je het straks in de stad op een goede manier uitrolt, heb je overal de beschikbaarheid over de bandbreedte om toepassingen te gebruiken die je wil gebruiken. Dus we kunnen ook zorgen dat er veilige verbindingen komen, dat je privacy geborgd is, dat we weten wat er met je data gebeurt. En aan de achterkant betekent dat je op een volwaardig niveau ook kunnen zorgen voor onderwijs op afstand, overal verbindingen die voor je sociale leven overal op hogere kwaliteit zijn, verbindingen die te maken hebben met zorg, remote healthcare, zorg op afstand, wat op een hele andere manier mogelijk wordt. Maar het belangrijkste voor Amsterdammers is denk ik dat ze daar niet meer over hoeven na te denken.
Welcome to the Automotive Campus and KPN's 5G Field Labs.
Waar u nu op staat te filmen is het slimste stoplicht van de hele wereld. Als er een brandweerauto aankomt, kunnen wij dit laten communiceren. Om sneller door te gaan, dus uiteindelijk zijn ze dan ook eerder op de plek.
Zeker zijn dit mooie tijden, want we horen natuurlijk al jaren dat het allemaal kan en dat het allemaal mogelijk is. En ik denk dat met de snelle verbindingen de realiteit een enorm stuk dichterbij is gekomen. Het gewas wordt gescand met een drone, het wordt vliegensvlug verwerkt. En ik heb een uur later ben ik zelf aan het werk om de gewasbescherming ook uit te voeren. Dus real-time ben ik aan het werk. 5G draagt bij aan een snelle dataoverdracht en dat bepaalt een geslaagde of een mislukte bestrijding.
Voor Shell is 5G belangrijk, want we hebben op deze raffinaderijen wireless communicatie nodig. 5G geeft namelijk de mogelijkheden om veel meer data te kunnen gebruiken op alle plekken op zo'n site. En daardoor hebben we ook mogelijkheden nu om die site nog veiliger te maken. En het is leuk dat het ook in Nederland plaatsvindt, samen met KPN. We hebben robots hier rondgaan. Met die robots zie je dus, die rijden dus zelfstandig rond. En die kijken dus van, zijn er lekkages? Kijken ook, zijn de pijplijnen op de spek? Moeten die eventueel vervangen worden? Als je in plaats van een persoon een robot echt naartoe kunt sturen, is het natuurlijk een veilige situatie dat de persoon er naartoe moet.
What you saw in these videos, what you heard, is also that people were really talking about their business demands. The CTO of Amsterdam wanted to make the city very safe. The mayor of Helmond wanted to get the fire brigade car very safely through the traffic lights, where actually the car turned the traffic light on green when it was necessary. And then two examples which you could say are from the manufacturing industry. First, a farmer who really wants to improve his the amount of crop that he produces in a very safe way, where he's using a drone to come up with the details of his potato field. And as the last one, the CTO of Shell in Pernis, explaining why he needed wireless communication and what he first started with Wi-Fi, which wasn't possible for him to continue, and really turned into 5G as a means to make his plant much safer. So it's really about business demands. It's not about the technology. But what you also saw, and what I explain later, is that you have to do this together with partners. It's not only the mobile network operator who takes care of this all. And if you have the right ecosystem, which is one of the things that Neil also addressed before, you can use the cutting edge technologies, and you can do a proper implementation of that in that environment. And for us as a mobile operator, that also means a completely new business market approach. It's not selling SIM cards and gigabytes and all that stuff. It's really thinking about what are the problems of my customer and how can I solve that. If we move to the next slide, please. That's why we developed a couple of field labs in the Netherlands. One in an urban environment around the Johan Cruijff Arena, which was supposed to get a couple of matches in the European Championships 2020, which will be postponed to next year, to make it a very safe environment. We had the agriculture one in rural northern part of the Netherlands, where it's really about how can we reduce the amount of chemicals in crop protection. The automotive part, where it's really about self-driving cars, maybe in a contained environment, where we can learn. And the fourth one was the one I'll focus on later on in this presentation, which is really on industry and the oil refinery. If you could go to the next slide. We actually thinking about what these field labs, how can we expand these field labs, maybe to public transportation or to the harbor of Rotterdam with all the connectivity on the North Sea. Can we already acquire all the data which is necessary for the logistics? And actually we have added an extra field lab in Eindhoven, specifically dedicated to manufacturing, where we're testing today with Van der Lande, which is a Dutch company, or actually it's Japanese now as Toyota bought them, which is doing a lot of work in logistics in airports, getting your suitcase on the proper flight, which hopefully I can get on later in this year, presenting what we have done together with them. But I can imagine moving to the next slide. That you think, nice words, Jacob, but what are the real actions? And that's what I'm presenting over here. We're using all the three main aspects of 5G. It's the massive machine type communication for all the IoT part. It's the ultra reliable connectivity that we need if a company like Shell really wants to rely on our mobile network. And we use the enhanced mobile broadband for all kinds of stuff. What we really wanted to prove, and what we have proven, is that you can use robots for the inspection of the site. You probably remember the yellow robot driving around, which was smelling gases on places where it wasn't supposed to have these gases. We used ultra high definition cameras to really detect corrosion on all the piping infrastructure. And you have to imagine that a refinery like Shell Pernis contains 160 to 170,000 kilometers of piping infrastructure. And corrosion is one of the main enemies, because it could really stop the production of the whole facility. And we wanted to support the workers over there, improving their productivity with a digital twin, with augmented reality and virtual reality stuff. In the middle picture, you'll see the whole setup with the three sites, the three towers, where we've set up our 5G services with all the data handled in our core networks, together with a couple of our partners. And what the plant really wanted to demonstrate is, can you get the high uplinks, the uploads, etc. And what we did is we implemented a 700 megahertz, 2300 megahertz, and 3.5 gigahertz massive MIMO on all these three towers. We added a lot of sensors to that. And as we weren't able to use the 5G IoT yet, we used LoRa and LTE-M as an unstandardized and a standardized way to do that. We used mobile edge computing with the augmented reality to really support that co-worker of Shell to improve his productivity. But we also proved that the applications that are used are homogeneously covering the whole setup of that refinery. And applications were always available through that ultra reliable, low latency aspect of 5G. And what we plan to do is what would give Shell even more capabilities is to check the position of a coworker, which meant that with these classes and with a ATEX certified iPad, you don't always have to send two people to a place to do some checks. So if we move to the next slide, I can animate that as well, what's happening in that industrial environment. Formerly, there was a technician that needed to check on the gases, etc. And it took months and months before issues were covered. Now it's done by that yellow robot, sending his signals through the 5G network to a data center where all the data is processed, sending it back to a dispatcher, which could then ask a field engineer to really move to the places where the repair has to take place. And that's not only on gases or corrosion on pipes, but it is also about vibrations in pumps or robots stopping, or an internal inspection of a vessel, etc. And that all supported with that augmented reality, with a digital twin on that iPad. And I think when we start with listening to a couple of our customers, what they really want, we should also almost end with them. So I've introduced an extra video where Shell and a couple of other people are explaining in real life what happened over there.
Inspecties gaan een stuk eenvoudiger met 5G-technologie. We kunnen mensen veiliger laten werken en beter inzicht krijgen in de toestand van onze installaties. We staan hier op Shell Pernis, de grootste raffinerij van Europa. We hebben hier 170.000 kilometer leidingen. De leidingen hier gaan 4 keer de wereld rond. We hebben tienduizenden sensoren nu al. Maar 5G stelt ons in staat om nog meer informatie te hebben over onze processen, over onze installaties. En daarmee de beschikbaarheid van onze fabrieken nog verder te verhogen.
Hier kan camera levert een stuk input. Op basis van die input wordt gedetecteerd of er wel of niet roest op een pijp is. Dat resulteert in een onderhoudsmelding die terugkomt bij die man in de auto en die kan meteen in actie nemen.
Wij zijn altijd bezig met de nieuwste technologieën te werken om ervoor te zorgen dat wij zo veilig mogelijk kunnen opereren en dat we ook zeker weten dat we veilig zijn.
Des te beter dat je met een auto er langs rijdt of misschien in de toekomst met een drone eroverheen vliegt en die inspectie geheel geautomatiseerd laat doen. En ook de analyse van die beelden door de geavanceerde IT-systemen die we hebben laat uitvoeren.
Een van de grote krachten van 5G die wij zien is dat we met 5G in staat zijn veel sneller gedetailleerde beelddata te verzamelen van al die leidingen.
Wat je hier gaat krijgen, en dat is ook wat de maakindustrie heel veel kan gebruiken, is dat je van correctief onderhoud, er is iets gebeurd en je moet acuut ingrijpen, eigenlijk naar preventief onderhoud gaat.
KPN is er een hele fijne partner, omdat zij heel erg bereid zijn om samen met ons aan die dingen te werken die wij in onze industrie nodig hebben.
Nu zie je eigenlijk dat doordat je mensen iPads ter beschikking kan stellen of slimme helmen of hulpmiddelen zoals die camera, dat helpt om echt die digitale transformatie persoonlijk te maken. En al die hulpmiddelen, die hebben allemaal die geavanceerde draadloze netwerken nodig, zoals 5G.
Met 5G zijn we in staat om nog veel meer data over onze installaties te verzamelen en daar waarde uit te halen.
To summarize on the next slide, I hope that you're really inspired by the things we could do together with small companies like X Robotics, but also with Microsoft, where all the data was handled in their Azure cloud platform. Together with ABB on the sensors on their pumping infrastructure, and with a digital twin and a ruggedized iPad. I think that we, with all the wireless connectivity that we could provide, in combination with a good ecosystem, can really drive manufacturing industry forward in quality, in productivity, but also in safety.
Okay, thank you very much, Jakob. We're going to move on to the final section of this afternoon's webinar, which is our 5G IoT manufacturing panel. Before we do, though, I just wanted to point out that we have launched a new poll in your window, so around 5G use cases. So please take the time to respond to that. If we could move on to the next slide, please. So I'd like to introduce the panel session this afternoon. We have three panelists. We have Andreas Escribano, the Industry 4.0 Business Director from Telefónica, Shamik Basu, who's the Head of IoT Platforms at Verizon, and Juha Mersch, who's the Global Cellular Connectivity Lead from ABB Motion Business. Firstly, what I'd like to do is to go to each of the panelists in turn and give them the opportunity to give themselves a quick introduction and to highlight their interest in 5G. So Shamik, I'll go to you first. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, Neil, and good afternoon across the world, I guess. Shamik Basu, I head up the IoT Platforms, Services and Solutions portfolio here at Verizon. And, it's a pleasure to be on this panel, just knowing the momentum we've seen with regard to manufacturing and the unraveling of brand new use cases. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you. And Andreas, would you like to introduce yourself and Telefónica?
Hello. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to share this specific and this exciting work, the experience of Telefónica regarding with manufacturing. My role in Telefónica is specifically found the new verticals around the 5G and the focus in Industrial 4.0 approach. I think is one of the more relevant, let's say, topic that we have in our, let's say, future in a short term and a medium term. I'm very happy to share all this, let's say, experience with all of you.
Okay, thank you. And Juha, are you there? Juha?
Yes. Hello, Neil, and thank you also from my side to have the possibility to participate in your discussions here on GSMA and give also a little bit insights from the industry's perspective and from ABB perspective, what 5G will do and will differentiate us going forward.
Okay, great. I think Juha, your camera's not working, but we can hear you just fine. So I'd like to start with the panel. So 5G opens up a lot of new possibilities and use cases for manufacturing companies, as we've heard from the various presentations this afternoon. However, realizing these benefits of 5G implementation is something that's difficult for any one company to do in isolation by themselves. So who do you think the key players in the 5G IoT manufacturing ecosystem are, and what do you think their roles are? And I'd like to ask that question to Juha from ABB.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. I really believe that we need to have three different kind of actors going forward. We need the drivers like GSMA, the 3GPP, 5G SCIA, who really make 5G as a standard and make sure that we have an ecosystem and interoperability between different players. Secondly, we need to have partnerships between the local CSPs, the connectivity service providers, with their RF spectrum and the capability of operating the network. We need to have the integrators to make OT, IT, and telco to talk to each other. And last and not least, we need to have the global technology vendors who provide global platforms where we can integrate and leverage. So, and of course, third, we need to have the enablers, the early adopters like ABB. I mean, we need to provide the use cases, how to integrate 5G into the industry. But furthermore, we need to be active in the ecosystems and the standardization to make 5G industrial approved.
Okay, thank you. And on that same topic, I'd like to ask if the two network operators we have here, how they would build an ecosystem to support these manufacturing projects, and what the important resources and skills that we need to put into place to make 5G implementation a success are. And also, how can we support the specialist developers and startups in our community? I'd be interested to hear if any of you have any programs in place that can help identify the relevant applications that are out there for the manufacturing industry. And Andreas, do you want to go first with that question?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, obviously the ecosystem is one of the big challenge. It's necessary to grow faster to let's say, to cover all customer needs or business needs that is around the enterprise and Industry 4.0. Basically, in our lesson learning during the past, we decided to launch several programs, but we tried to put the focus in only one, that is calling the things. Because we decided that it's not only offer technical capabilities to customer or partners to start this journey jointly. It's necessary to put more resource. And resource is not only basically in the technical part. Obviously, all of us are able to offer these technical capabilities, but it's necessary to go further. It's necessary to discuss how is the best way to integrate different components. In this case, in several cases, hardware components, module, chipset, how is possible to choose the right one according with this specific use case. Other important capability that we are, let's say, putting in the hands of the partners and customers is the capability to test. I think the colleague explained before about the certification and tests that working properly. It's necessary to check before to deploy in a production environment that the things that you are use they are working properly with all certification and all, let's say, components in a very secure way. And the second one is regarding with the startups. Okay, obviously the big companies has resort to moving faster in this world, but the startup need a lot of more help regarding with the product approach, with the business approach, and offering not only specifically 5G network companies. It's necessary, for example, offer capabilities regarding with the edge computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning platforms, or blockchain. For us, the ecosystem at the end is an end-to-end view, is an holistic. We need to, let's say, deploy this concept of the ecosystem growth like an holistic view. It's necessary to integrate several components to guarantee this let's say, end-to-end success,
And Shamik, the same question to you about the ecosystem.
Sure, Neil. And I almost want to tee off of some of our industry partners and the comments made therein, which is, success in building 5G and success in deploying 5G is really going to come from the enablement of these partnerships. So at Verizon, the way we're looking at this is it's almost like a 360 view, where we start out with, and we're calling it about almost 4 steps to success. One is, how we seed the ecosystem. Second is sort of how we create joint outreach to the innovator, incubator, developer community. The third is, our means of activating and onboarding, and how they're turning to very, very digital as opposed to traditional. And the 4 is how we scale once we've kind of created 1, 2, and 3. And, in scale, how do we create the right partnerships, not in just the device ecosystem, but even the cloud ecosystem? So let me kind of elaborate a little bit. So, on the seed side of things, we've invested quite a bit in working with, the silicon houses, because we know that in order to get the right instrumentations to drive some of these use cases on the manufacturing floor, we're going to have to be ready out of the box when these devices show up at these floors. So seeding the ecosystem, working very closely with the silicon partners, as well as our SIM partners is essential, especially to get something like eSIM proliferated widely. And then from a developer outreach standpoint, you asked about how we are creating avenues for specialist developers. So for developer outreach, we've invested very, very heavily in our 5G innovation lab, where we're, starting out programs, starting out contests and all sorts of things where people can come in, get access to the network, get access to the tools that we have in place, get preferential certification benefits through our certification program so they can get 5G devices ready. We are creating reference implementations, which are very, very important for the developer community to come and be convinced that they should build. The third element, which is the onboarding and how we digitize the experience, is very, very important, because when developers come in and they encounter a friction-full experience, they're probably not going to bite. And therefore, we're changing the way in which we are allowing developers to come in, incubate, and create 5G solutions from the get-go, through credit card, working with cloud partners and so on. And the fourth element here is, very, very critical, which is, you've seen our partnerships that we've been public with people like AWS. And the reason those are so important is because the innovation community is sitting in these clouds and driving a lot of their activity and the partnerships and the application builds in these environments. So we've taken our services, embedded them in these cloud environments, and enabled their ISVs to come build very, very creative applications. So that way we're kind of creating, all the tenets of an ecosystem, all the way from seeding in the silicon layer to really scaling this in the cloud layer with the ISV partnership. That's how we believe we can bring joint solutions to the manufacturing, working with our customers. Back to you.
Great, thank you. I'd like to move on to use cases in manufacturing. So I'd like to ask each of you which use cases you think 5G can support in the manufacturing environment. And how do you see the type of use case that 5G can support evolving over time? So what areas are you focused on today, and where might you look in the future? And I'd like to go to Andreas of Telefónica to answer that.
Okay. Let me split into focus. One of them is from the architecture point of view. In a very short term, our focus is in the capabilities regarding with edge computing, how mixing the computing iteration with the network component that we deploy in the factory, how it's possible to mix this work and obtain the benefit to mix the IT, OT with the network communication in a very short term. From the business, more focusing process or business process, we are split in 4 points. The first one is the positioning. How is possible to obtain the indoor tracking? How is possible to increase the precision? Now we're talking about something like a 5 meters, something like that, but we need to reach something like less than 1 meter. We have now technology that is able to offer this kind of solution, but the question is how it's possible to use only one technology for transfer data and at the end to position the different elements of device in the factory. The second component for us in our process is automatization, all related with how it's possible to automatize the different process. For example, use an example of Jacob in the petrochemical companies. AGV, drones, robots is critical. Every time we are able to reach the adequate throughput, latency, and I think 5G is improved to cover the different requirements that is necessary to be deployed for this automatization. The third one is related with the preventive maintenance and remote operation. And I think through we suffer the COVID, and it's one of the things that all companies are accelerated and understand how important is the reaction time and how it's possible to reduce the movement of the technician on field to guarantee a right, let's say, support for the operational in a 24 hours and something like that. And in this case, augmented reality, virtual reality, digital twin are critical, and it's let's say one of the topics that we put the focus in a medium term. And the last one is related with connected work. I mean, obviously we automatize, we introduce mechanisms to guarantee automatization in the full process, but at the end it's necessary to integrate the employees in this process and guarantee that is used in the right way, integrated in the best environment, and guarantee the production or the outcome of the factory, integrated the employees like a part of this value. Okay, this is the 4 topics that we mentioned. We put the focus, at least in a short term, in a medium term view.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to ask the same question about use cases to Shamik from Verizon.
Yeah, Neil, I think you sort of asked the question in 2 parts as to what are we focused on today with regard to and how that kind of evolves into, more refined use cases of the future. So today, I will tell you that most of our use cases and implementations are focused around the massive sensorization area. The ability to kind of take what exists in terms of the low power WAN technologies, integrating them deeply into our ThinkSpace platform, and enabling analytics coming out of the factory floor, being able to support condition-based maintenance, and to a large extent, proactive maintenance as well. If you think about the benefits that companies in the industry overall can derive from proactive maintenance as opposed to going out and fixing failures, I mean, it's almost amounts to about $170, $180 billion a year in kind of failed outcomes and the need to fix them. So today it's mostly focused around massive sensorization and the collection of the data and how we can take that data and build predictive analytics and condition monitoring type cases. You've also seen, some of news that we put out very recently about working with Corning on a factory of the future, and we've gone out and installed 5G ultra wideband, and through the camera equipment, we're able to orchestrate brand new use cases. But let me move on to the possibilities of 5G. And if you think about some of the new use cases that emerge and unravel as a result of that, they all tie to kind of business outcomes that the industry is looking for. So if you just look at the learning costs and injury costs related to worker safety, it's about the 18-19 number was as high as about $16-17 billion. So there's definitely an area that can be addressed. And the fact that we can have low latency detection and reaction to hazardous conditions, the fact that we can have AR/VR related monitoring, where you can have train the new operator or train the new worker type use cases, those we believe are critical. Both from and these can accentuate the fact that we have high throughput from 5G and super low latency. So the AR/VR components are essential, and then you kind of move to the automated movement of goods and people, right? And the automatically guided vehicles and robotics also coming from the presence of low latency are critical use cases that accentuate low latency and the massive throughput element as well. Those are the key ones that we see. I mean, there are some very interesting ones that that have come to us from our customers. For example, we were listening to a customer the other day, and someone just brought up a use case about an automated broom, because they're spending so much time attending to spills and sending workers over to attend to these, and the question that came up was, through the use of low latency and through the use of 5G, could we actually orchestrate something like that, and that would lead to immediate cost cuts on their floor. So just to reinforce, I mean, massive IoT today, quickly evolving into high throughput computer vision type use cases, AR, VR, and then evolving into the low latency use cases like robotics and the entire digitization from production to consumption.
Excellent. And I'd like to just go back to Juha from ABB, just to understand what 5G use cases are important to ABB at the moment. Juha?
Yeah, okay. I would like to start that from a little bit higher perspective first. I mean, we all share that we are in an era of this kind of industrial revolution. How do we produce question? And then from ABB perspective and from our solution perspective, we have a second revolution, which is the energy revolution. Where do we produce, how do we produce energy, and how do we use energy? And that is really where we start. And then when you start to drill into the 5G use cases, it's exactly what Shamik says. It's a journey. It starts with monitoring. For ABB, it's really important is safety. I mean, remote monitoring of our assets, remote monitoring of factories, keep, so to say, the factory running. That is really where we want to start. And then it comes to the energy efficiency, that how can we, by analytics, save energy? How can we be more efficient? Our motors, I mean, they keep the world turning basically, and 1/3 of the world's energy is consumed by AC motors. So it's natural that we look into the ways how can we optimize the energy efficiency. Furthermore, I mean, we want, yeah, that is basically how we want to keep the 5G or the reasoning of 5G enablement.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, I think we've run out of time for the panel this afternoon. We were going to move on to topics around 5G security and talk about public and private networks. Hopefully, we'll have a chance to pick those topics up another time. But I'd like to thank the three panelists this afternoon for giving their wonderful insights to us. And to wrap up the webinar this afternoon, I'll hand back to my colleague Aruna. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. So I would like to thank today's presenters and panelists for their fantastic insights into this exciting area. I think it's clear that 5G IoT for manufacturing is a really exciting area of growth and opportunity over the coming years. I'd also like to thank our attendees for your time and for participating in the poll, where we got some really interesting results, and also point you to our website, gsma.com/manufacturing. If you're interested in following up on any of the topics raised today or finding out more information about the 5G IoT Manufacturing Forum, we'll also have a recording of this webinar available on demand. So thank you all once again, and farewell.